Welcome, everyone, to the Med Gym podcast. I'm Gina Angeletti, physical therapist and someone who has spent a career in the gap between what an athlete's body can do and what it's being asked to do. This show is about health in the sport across three pillars: mental, physical, and training. A lot of people leave this sport when the sport is done with them, but my guest today never left. 30 years on, she still lights up talking about it. Amanda Borden was the captain of the Magnificent Seven, the seven women who won the first Olympic team gold in American gymnastics history in Atlanta 30 years ago in 1996. But I'm just as interested in everything that came after. She built her gym. She has spent far longer coaching this sport than competing in it. And she's raised a level 10 gymnast of her own, her daughter Kennedy, who will compete for Alabama in NCAA next season. Athlete, coach, gym owner, gym mom. 4 different seats in the same sport, and she's still in love with it. Most importantly, my friend, Amanda, welcome to the Med Gym podcast.
Oh, you're making me cry already. I'm glad to be here.
You deserve every bit of it. Yes, thank you for being on. We are so excited. What a year this is for the 30th anniversary.
Yes.
Does it feel like 30
I cannot believe it's been that long, but no, I just pinch myself because first of all, I can't even be that old, but
we are not that old.
It's just that's right. Such a highlight of my life. And already as we approach getting our team together and, doing some fun things, like I've already had so many emotional moments and hearing people's memories. And we're just excited to have a little bit of time, just us friends too, and not be, in the light of gymnastics and just really catch up with each other.
I love it. What's the first thing that comes back to you from your time in Atlanta?
I've felt like I've been reliving the moment a little bit with different interviews and talking to different people and reading, what all the rest of my team talks about too. I think my two big things the biggest thing was walking into the Georgia Dome for me. Was it just really the impact of what the Olympic Games really is. And to have that in my own country with so many people rooting for us just really, brought this perspective of like, I've always done gymnastics because I love it. I'm still here because I love it. And I'm going to do my best out here on the Olympic floor because I love it. And so that created a lot of emotion. But I also think at the 10-year mark, I brought up that we were dubbed the Meg 7 back then because of what we, accomplished right then in that moment. But I think my bigger takeaway 30 years later is that I would say that we're more magnificent women now in the things that we've done since the Olympics. And I think that's pretty impressive. And one of them being that we have stayed in touch, and I would consider them my friends.
You were the captain, and over many years in many sports, there are different ways that sports pick captains. Sometimes coaches do, sometimes teams do. Do you remember how that was decided and what it involved? And then when you heard, how it made you feel?
Yeah, very vivid memory for me. A small glimpse is I was on the elite scene in 92, thought I qualified and then didn't go. So this is now 4 years in the making, where I was always the athlete a little bit on the bubble. I dreamed of making the Olympic team, but I knew it was going to take perfect days for that to happen. And so when my dream came true, I also realized I was not the best athlete on the team. But I knew in my heart that I had something more to contribute. I didn't really have a title to that or knew what that was going to look like. So we were stretching at the end of a practice in Atlanta at the local gym we were training at. We weren't at a big facility. And they basically asked us to vote on who we wanted for the captain. And I wrote down our fearless leader in my mind, Shannon Miller. And everybody else voted for me. And that's also going to make me teary because the fact that these girls that I looked up to and admired and was amazed with in so many ways saw something special that I think I knew I had, but I just didn't know what that looked like when you're not the most experienced. There were 3 Olympians already on the team. JC Phelps won the trials. They had already won racks of medals, and I knew I was a good athlete, but I knew that there was something more important.
It sits differently when it's not just from coaches that recognize it, but from your peers as well. I think that especially with the caliber of women that you were on the team with, hearing that from them just sits heavy, which is
it's a very
fantastic.
special moment.
What did that team get right, per se? So 7 teenagers, so much pressure, so much youth. What made it work?
Well, all of us had competed, with each other at some point, but not all 7 of us had been on the same team. And I think that was something really unique. We had relationships with each other in some capacity. We knew the strengths that we were bringing into the team. But I think, from our coaches, to ourselves, what we did right, when we were training at our training camp ahead, Mary Lou Retton actually came in and talked to us. And she was the one that said, the Olympics is in your country. Like, press is going to be all over. It's going to be, back then the newspaper and on TV. That was our press. But she's like, don't listen, don't watch, don't listen. Just, stay into you guys. And when I say I walked into the Georgia Dome just saying I'm Amanda from Finneytown, Ohio, which is a small part of Cincinnati, that was my mentality. The small town girl had worked her way to get here. So just keep doing what you've been doing. And I think all of us in some capacity had that mindset. Like, we're not here to change anything or do anything. We're here to just do our best and stay in our zone. And so even after the day 1 competition, we were in second. I think most people figured if we were going to win a medal, it was going to be bronze or silver anyway. But that didn't faze us. We didn't feel like we were going into day 2 playing from behind or anything like that. We just kept staying in the day, staying in the moment. Our coaches kept us on our training plans because we were able to use the whole gym to train. We weren't in one squad like you have to do quite often when you don't have the flexibility of, having an offsite training. Right. And again, I just think that those are all lead ups that kept us in our little bubble, in our little world, doing our little thing, that when you brought all those little things together, it just made, one of the greatest teams.
Let's go to after the Olympics and talking about looking back, just a couple health and wellness questions for you. What do you think that you did, or that Mary Lee did, or that life allowed you to do that let you stay healthy and durable and for the long run? And what are things that you didn't do and wish that you did and got lucky kind of getting through things?
Yeah. I do think I have a durable build. I'll start with that. I think I was always a very strong kid by nature. My pitfall was flexibility. So early on, I had quite a few injuries that had flexibility issues. Like, I had the avulsion fracture hamstring. Then I pulled the other one. Then I hurt a calf muscle. And so early on.
For those that don't know, the avulsion is when the tendon also pops off the bone or takes pieces of bone with it.
Yes. And we didn't even barely know what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then.
Well, we also didn't have MRIs at the ready in 2 seconds for, $400 on the side. So I think that was a big difference in diagnostic procedure too.
100%. But what I had was a coach and parents that listened to me. So I felt like I always knew my body. I could always talk to my parents about it, number one. And I felt like I could talk to my coach about it. And I think that because I had support on both sides, if, my coach was like, well, can you push through or can you work? I was able to give that a yes or no versus like, oh, am I in trouble? And so I think that was really important early on for me because I learned to have a voice. In fact, I felt like sometimes I had a voice for teammates because I'm like, I don't know if she should be doing that. What I do think Mary Lee also did for me was she taught me to have the mindset that if you don't know, never be afraid to say it and keep learning. So if you have tight hamstrings, like we're not going to just pull your leg and stretch you until you're more flexible. Like, why? Why is it tight? What do we need to do differently? What are we doing different in your training? What do we need to pay attention to that maybe my young teammate JC is going to be able to do that maybe 19-year-old Amanda is not going to be able to do? And how are we still building training that's still getting the type of maybe mental or physical reps that we need to be successful at this level without hurting my body or whatnot? And so I feel like she, I always wonder, if I am just a learner by nature too, or if she taught me to have that mindset as an athlete and it's trickled to everything else in my life. I feel like by the last year, I felt really empowered that I definitely didn't know the way to make it on the Olympic team. I needed my coach in so many, capacities. But, our assignments turned into, I want you to hit 10 beam routines that you want to compete, at trials or whatever. And, I would be like, yeah, that wasn't it. And she'd be like, what do you mean? Like, what do you not? I just felt like I was a little off on, whatever the detail was. And she's like, no, that was a 985 or better. Like, check, you nailed it. And so it got to the point where then I was the one making the decision of, was that good enough? Do I need another one? Or am I done? And I feel like that mindset really helped me get into, even at the very end of my training, I mean, I knew what made me feel my best in how I slept, what I ate, my training, my therapy, and yes, that is also a very rigid piece of my personality, but I wasn't dependent on her giving me that should count. It was very, I don't know, everything felt like it was my decision. And I don't know that it was truly my decision. I think there was definitely, but that's how I believed and felt. And
right.
So on the bad days, it made it manageable. And on the great days, it made it manageable, emotionally. And I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle.
So moving from all of those answers into you building this amazing program at this amazing gym that, in my perspective, and this is professionally speaking and as a friend, you are creating a platform for kind coaching that is still strict in following the dynamics of making sure that basics happen and that strength happens and that things are followed, but you can be good and kind and respectful and create these amazing athletes. So tell us about the gym and what made you want to open a gym in the first place.
Well, I went to school to be a teacher. I loved kids. I knew I wanted to teach. So I planned on, being a K-8 teacher. And I started teaching math. That was my favorite subject. And then I got talked into, run a gymnastics camp at the school and then run after school classes. And then I realized I can actually just teach my favorite thing in the world. And I didn't know where that was going to go. I didn't open gold medal gymnastics thinking I want a competitive team or I want to coach elite gymnastics. I just enjoyed coaching. And so, for the first year or so, I did not even pursue that direction. I did recreational only. It was for boys and girls. And it just the program grew quickly, which was amazing. But what really grew was my passion for it and my desire to teach the sport, but also I think teach everything else that comes with it that turns us into amazing people. And yes, there are some things that, maybe aren't the greatest thing about gymnastics, but I think when you're educated about why, we do these things or why we don't do these things, again, you're helping kids be able to make up their choice or make up their mind.
The word you used earlier that I use often in my treatment is empowerment. And you're empowering the athletes to be better people, but also the coaches around you to also empower the athletes. So it's this, I think it's your theme.
Because I was raised in this type of environment as an athlete, it almost seemed normal. This is what everybody experienced. And what I started to realize is that as I hired coaches, I was like, oh, Okay. Well, not everybody experienced it like this. And how do I teach, the adults or the coaches that, are coming into our program to see coaching gymnastics differently too? And so that is obviously something that I continue to navigate, because we all come to, the sport as coaches with very different reasons, backgrounds, knowledge, etc. But then the flip side of it is empowering and teaching kids some of these skills through 22 years has definitely gotten more challenging. And obviously that's probably a whole nother discussion about all the things that I feel like have happened in kids' lives that are making some of these things more challenging. But, having my daughter be a part of it, I just remember feeling like I have no idea where this sport's going to take her, but what I do want for her is to be an empowered, strong young woman, period. Like, regardless.
I've obviously known Kennedy for years and watched her grow through you, but I think watching her just decide, I mean, she had so much fun this year at nationals, and she decided that she chose that because she wanted to have fun, with her week. It's just you're hoping that when you're not in the room that they're making the choices that they should make, and that's true empowerment. Okay, given any Tuesday or Wednesday random day at your gym, name 3 facets of what a healthy gym looks like for you. What makes the gym look and feel healthy?
Well, obviously we take a lot of pride in just, the way our facility feels when you walk in. We want a big word in my life that I use a lot is joy. When you walk through the door, you probably would see a totally different perspective based off which program you're in and all of those kind of things. But ultimately, it's bright, it's colorful, fun music, and the body language of the adults in the building is very important. So that feel, and anybody that knows me, and I always laugh because I'm sure my own coach would say I was one of the biggest feelers she ever coached. Things had to feel right to me. I had to feel positive and good and believed in and all the things. And so that's a really big piece of what we try to create. I think, I don't know how to make this like a one thing, but the culture in like our competitive environment, I feel like I'm really striving to teach kids that whatever your goal is, like, you can do hard work and you can do it with joy. You can have fun doing it. And so I think that's another really big piece. And obviously there's some kids that have been raised in this program and they've maybe heard that or experienced whatever that looks like. But we do get kids that come from other programs. And I find that interesting, like to hear their perspectives and stories. And it takes a lot of communication on our part as coaches, like building that trust and having them understand that, I've been doing this a long time. And yes, there is this system in my mind that I know generally works to get you these skills and then put them together in routine and da 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 da. But if I'm so set on that one system, I'm not being a great coach or teacher. And so that system takes my communication and ideas and yours as the athlete. And so, I just think relationships is probably the other big thing, or teamwork. I mean, our staff, we all bring in a strength, we all bring weaknesses. And if we're not working together, like setting our own egos aside and working together to better the child, the program, the situation, then we're failing. And I think the same thing within the kids. I think that's the expectations. There's
Absolutely.
some athletes in the group that are going to be your hardest workers or the most talented or the cheerleader. And it's like, we need all of those qualities to become a great team. We learn from that. We grow from that. I used to say as an athlete, people would say, who's your role model? And I'm like, well, do you have time to hear them? Because I have about 20. And they were like certain qualities of these athletes that I didn't want to be just like Shannon Miller, but her detail and precision amazed me. And that's what I wanted to be like in Shannon Miller. And, it was the Kim Zemesco, like I'd never seen somebody so powerful and I just was not. And so I wanted to be, like her. I watched everything she did to be quick and powerful. And so just having that mindset of, we all are great. We all bring something, and let's celebrate that. But we got to own where we're weak, and we got to help each other out and learn so that, we're making whatever we're doing better. Because if not, why are we doing it?
Why are we doing it? So when, I think here's a tough question and something for good coaches. How do you handle it when an athlete who you see is truly been struggling with, let's just say, back pain, is in the gym, and the mom says she's fine to come back, a doctor says she's fine to come back, and you just see that there's a dichotomy with that. You see her face, you see that she doesn't look confident, you see that she doesn't look like she's ready, and physically no one truly knows what the answer is, because the athlete might be holding back because they don't want to tell you that they're still hurting, although you do have great communication. They don't want to be left out. They might be saying something different to their therapist or their parents because their parents are paying money for gymnastics. There's all these variables that go into the truth and what that is. How do you, as a coach, handle that with the athlete in getting as much truth, per se, out of them so that their return to the sport can be as respectful to them as possible?
Yeah. I mean, my first choice is to build a relationship with their doctors and PTs. And obviously it takes doctors and PTs that are willing to do that. And I realize not everybody has time to do that. But even again, right now I only coach our level 9s and 10s for the most part. So I'm working with our highest athletes. I feel like at those levels, they're probably seeing their PT regularly. They have a relationship with them. And so, if their PT's open to it and their families give them permission, whether it's a phone call to me, whether they update me with appointments, send me an email. I teach the kids right from the get-go that, I'm not the doctor or the PT. I've obviously been involved in this sport a lot, and some of these injuries I've had myself. And so I know a little bit about it, and I have a general idea of what I think I would recommend for a return to certain things, but your PT is going to know best. And your PT is going to monitor the health of your body. And with that together, we then figure out the best play or plan to return to gymnastics. Because gymnastics is a unique sport, in my opinion, and I'm not discrediting any other sport, but if you have a PT that doesn't necessarily understand the sport, they sometimes will say, you're good to go. And I'm like, good to go? We haven't done a run or a jump on anything, let alone on a hard punching surface with force and body weight and power.
And that might be one of my biggest pet peeves by far, is then the athlete and the parent get in their minds that when they run to the gym today, they're going to be able to do things. And now Amanda's the bad person because she says, you can't do giants. You haven't put your arm over your head in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
This doesn't, or they'll say, let's not vault, but you can do bars. And you're like, do you understand the mechanics of both? Yeah. So the relationship that you have built with them helps.
Yes. Then I think, if we get our first choice, that really makes things helpful. But then again, I feel like it's educating definitely the athlete. I work with the older kids, but quite often now we feel like we need to really loop parents into. For example, we have kids that are like, I'm allowed to do bars. I'm like, great. They had a wrist or something. So, okay, great. So I kind of come up with a plan, but they don't want to do any what I consider bar conditioning. And I'm like, well, let's review this. Okay. There's certain things like the conditioning's not here to hurt your body. So it's not that I want you to do all the conditioning and not do any of the gymnastics. But if I let you do the gymnastics and we don't ever do the conditioning or the flexibility, then I'm just setting you up to get injured again, because conditioning, in my opinion, is a much more controlled, slower paces, not as much force. It's not always, like force behind your body weight. A lot of times it's just a handstand. We're holding your body weight. We're not jumping back to the handstand, which is more than your body weight. And so educating them to understand that. And then I always try to have a sliding scale of what I feel like, we're in preseason right now. Right now, in my mind, doing more conditioning and flexibility with basics on an injured body would be smarter than doing all the skills now and not strengthening and getting you flexible enough to withstand what we know it's going to take to maintain these skills. And then during season, we kind of do this. We go opposite, right? We go into more of a maintenance stage where, okay, you can't do all this conditioning because doing that and your bar routines hurt your wrists. So now we have to come up to a happy medium, right? Like, how much are we scaling back on both, or, vice versa? And so I feel like that's a great way. The struggle, because I don't want to act like this is, easy and it works out, is getting sometimes all the truth from, the kids as far as what they can and can't do, but also their pain. And then also parents, because quite often they're overlooking some of it because they want to make sure their kids can get in to compete. We only compete in this small window and it's now or never. And so there are these other pressures. And so that does make our job challenging. I feel like kids that I've coached for a really long time and built that relationship with, now it's really between us to constantly build that trust. I had a gymnast that had a bad shoulder, and bars is one of her best events. And she was devastated to not train the same way because she saw that this training plan works, and she was very successful and she liked that feeling. And so we had to come up together with a plan like, okay, we need to modify and do these things. And here's how you're making up what you're missing, right? Whether it was mental reps, whether it was drills that didn't hurt as bad, or more of a basic part of the skill. So you're not doing, say, 10 full outs, but you're doing this drill, that drill, and this drill, which equals 10 full outs, but you didn't even hurt your shoulder. And so that piece is, as coaches, part of our job is to educate our athletes on, why do we do this many reps? Why do we feel like we need 10 bar routines to hit? Okay, well, because we need the endurance, the strength, the execution. That's fine. So when we need to delete some of those numbers, what can we fill in that's still getting that same result? Because I think that's one big thing that's changed. I mean, I'm not listing any names, but I watched girls on my Olympic team do 20 beam routines a day with some serious level of gymnastics, right?
And this is what I was referencing before with your group of some people needed this and some people needed this.
Yeah.
And if either one would have switched what the assignments were, the ones that needed to do 20 would have gone ballistic if they had 2. And the ones that did only 2 would have literally just physically not survived doing the 20.
100%. But I feel like as an athlete, you have that little bit of innate quality. And here's how I really watched it was with my own daughter, is there were so many things that I never shared about, like, me as an athlete. Like, I liked a lot of numbers, but at the end, my body couldn't withstand that. So that's where Mary Lee came in, educating me on how I could still get the kind of reps that I felt like I needed to feel good, to feel prepared, to feel like I can nail this, but then know that I wasn't doing so much that I wasn't going to be able to compete. And so I never really said anything to her. And then my daughter started going like, I need more reps. I need more reps. I need more reps. And so I think through my own experience, but I also think through time and knowledge of our sport, there's so many great ways now that you can still get the amount of needed reps. I'm not talking full routines and all that kind of stuff, that are actually probably more beneficial for the end result than just doing all that work. And I think if you can get your athletes to understand the why and buy into the small things like visualization, I'm huge on it. I mean, like, you can do 5 full bar routines in your head and, had bloody hands that day, couldn't even swing, and you still gained something out of this. And So it's teaching our kids to buy into that stuff and actually really doing it. And I think one of my favorite things is watching an athlete finally go like, oh, that does work.
Yeah.
I don't have to do
Right.
the full routine, or I can do my beam routine down here on the laser beam because I just don't feel right today. And I just got so many perfect reps that I almost feel better. And so seeing that light bulb, I think, come on for them again, that word empowerment, right? It's like, it gives them the power and control to realize, like, if they really want to be successful, there's no way around not working hard. So if they're going to avoid the work in general, I mean, nothing's going to work. But if they really want to be great, they start realizing that these other things can work too. And that's awesome.
I love that transition to the next generation of you raising Kennedy, who is just a delightful young lady, and I cannot wait to see what she does with her college career and enjoying the fruits of the labor with amazing coaches. I would love to ask, I think, a twofold question. What parts of the way that you were coached did you say, and I think you answered one of these, that you watched her with the reps and everything else. What parts do you have to pull back coaching your own daughter and say, nope, that's how Amanda would have wanted to do it. That's not how Kennedy, needs to do it. And where maybe did you and she disagree on things and you had to kind of just let her find her way?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't coach her until she was a level 8. For a lot of reasons. We had great coaches, and I was coaching 9s and 10s, and, I didn't feel the need to, come down and coach level 4. And I really enjoyed being in the stands watching her. That was definitely, I love that for all 3 of my kids. My boys are not gymnasts, but I love sitting in the stands and watching them too. So I didn't really, I feel like, get super involved till about level 8. And I mostly stayed at bars until like level 9 and 10. And then I worked in with her group at bars and beam, which are the 2 most challenging in my opinion, mentally and emotionally. I always said from the beginning, there's nothing she'll ever accomplish as a gymnast that's more important to me than our relationship. So I I hope that, she's felt that way. I hope that, she shares these, fun stories too. But, and I think for the most part, that was really easy to balance. I had great coaches. If anything got sticky, she was so frustrated that she wasn't coachable by me, or I saw her attitude going maybe in a direction that I felt like, I don't want to have to correct the gymnastics and her attitude and then take it all home. Right. Like, I would just get our other coaches involved, and they were amazing. I think she and I related a lot to many things. I think the biggest thing that I noticed that was different is she thrived with a coach that could really go, a little bit more aggressive. Like, nope, you can do this. We're going to do it right now. Get back there. We're throwing the skill. Where I was a little bit more, and this would be a funny question to ask Mary Lee, but I needed a little more of a hug, and you can do it. And I'm going to be right there with you. And so through time, that's my style of coaching, is I'm more nurturing like that. She'd be like, Mom, you're too nice. You're too positive, and so I found that interesting. But I think overall, I think she was a very strong-willed, strong-minded child from birth. And I think she was always amazing at hearing what I had to say. But I think a lot of it for me was, I can share my knowledge and share what I know can work, but she will always want to kind of find her way of figuring. And sometimes that meant me completely butting out. And I think for coaches, that's hard. I think for moms, that's hard. But it was easy for me because I had other coaches that could jump in.
It's very interesting to watch some of the athletes from 30 years ago to now and our current athletes whose parents are involved, right? I mean, Simone's mom owns the gym and is involved not from a coaching perspective, but from the business perspective. And of course, Jade's dad and Artemov's dad. And I mean, there's from the men's and the women's side, there are so many of these. And that's constantly a struggle to creating a very good human above good athlete is being able to say mom first, achieving athlete second. And I think Kennedy appreciates that. Let's talk a little bit about something that was new for you in the recruiting process. Not new because obviously you have athletes at your gym that are doing it, but on the mom side of things, what surprised you most? What was the most challenging for you in the process? And how was the experience for you?
Yeah. I think obviously I knew a lot about recruiting with all these other athletes that I had been in. And then prior to that, it was when I got recruited, right? Like, I think when it came to being the mom, I really tried to stay out of a lot of the coaching piece of that. Like, we have another coach that does all the recruiting. And so if I had questions or I felt like, hey, Kennedy has questions about this school or that school, I tried to let that go through our other coach. For a variety of reasons. Number one, the biggest one I felt like was I wanted her to form her own opinions about universities, the coaches, the team, the program, whatever she was perceiving of this process. Because I think when you've been in the sport for 40 years, I mean, I've been in this sport for over 40 years, I have a lot of opinions and they may not all be right. And
some of the people
and
have
I
been
think,
around since we were athletes are now
yeah,
still coaching and doing everything. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And what my opinions maybe have formed when I was 19, right? Like, and so I just really tried to not say too much. I talked to my husband about things like, oh, this is what I think. This is what I think she's going to like or not like. And what really amazed me is she looked at a lot of schools that I actually looked at, when I was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And her takeaways, even if it was different staff, was very similar to mine. And I'm like, see, I tell you, we're a lot alike, even though like I'm trying to, let her navigate it. But so I think all of that was fun. I thought it was an awesome experience for her and for us as parents. I would also say it was overwhelming. I think, I'm not here to brag about her, but I feel like what I knew I was confident about for her was she's very well spoken. She is a great leader for her team. So I felt very good about, she's going to have these adult conversations with all these adults. I mean, has she ever talked to any adults, but like her teachers, the coaches, and like her parents? And she handled that process amazing. Like she wasn't nervous about the Zooms with all the coaches and the phone calls. And so I felt like I knew that about her, but to watch her thrive in that, I thought was great. And then I think I didn't really have any surprises. I would say, the life of these college coaches it's gotta be so exhausting. They work and do so many incredible things to build relationships and share the knowledge about their schools. And I admired that. I was very impressed at, all the things that they do to make sure that, the athletes, most importantly, but us parents too, we're getting all the information because it is really the first biggest decision your kid makes when they're approaching that point of their life. And I think ultimately, like anything, any decision that I feel like we've guided her on and all of our personal children, and I would do the same thing for my gymnast, is before you even do any of these calls, like what is most important to you, so that when we say, well, here's why you like this school, does it answer the why you originally started with. And right away, she was, looking for things she had grown up with here: culture, positivity. She's very competitive. Um, my first and my third born love to win. So I know she wants to be on a team that feels that same way, but she wants to do it because she loves it and, finds that fun and joy in it. And so that was really important to her. And then the relationships, like the coach relationship and the team relationship. And so I felt like those were really good parameters to be making her decisions. And so that really gave us as parents confidence and like, you're going to know by the conversations and asking questions that are meaningful to you. And you're going to know when you go on these visits because you're going to be able to see, do these things look like what you talked about prior to knowing any of the inside scoop?
Do they like their teammates? Do they feel supported in decision making, which is much bigger than how does lineup work and how do you feel when you travel? I mean, it really is. What's the life part of the work life aspect of the school feel like? So go back now, 10 years, 15 years. What would you tell a parent who has a 10-year-old kid who's a pretty rockin' athlete and they may look like they have it all? The kid is happy, they love gymnastics, they can't stop cartwheeling on the sides even before class. Parents are zealous about them doing what they need to do. What would your best advice be for them?
I always say, I was talking to my husband, like, I don't know, my boys are going to be navigating, I have a sophomore in high school. So now we're going to navigate that process. And I'm not saying a college athlete, I'm saying like approaching college. So I think it'll be interesting to see if it feels the same or because Kenna was in the sport I knew. But I think ultimately what we felt as parents that I would encourage is to walk alongside your kids because there's nobody that loves them more, but start teaching them how to think about what they want and what that might take. Because I think one thing I'm noticing with kids I coach is they have a hard time thinking for themselves in a way that says like, this is where I want to go. This is what I think I need to do to get there, or I need help. Who do I even ask? And so just that whole thought process of, and again, it goes back to the word empowerment. I don't think Kennedy ever had a one path track. I think at one point she wanted to be an elite gymnast and, maybe she thought about going to the Olympics and then, changed that. And, I think eventually it was, landed on, if there's a college opportunity, but she had no idea where in the country. She was always very like fluid in what this plan looked like. But we always, had that open conversation about it. Like, okay, well, if you really are interested in these type of schools,
Mm-hmm.
they seem to be recruiting, level 10s and elites. And okay, well, what does that look like? Like, what kind of skill sets do you need on these these levels? And like, where are you at? And, do you feel like you know how to get there? Do you need to talk to your coach about it? Like, let's create a plan. And so we also do, I call it Empower Hour. We do that every week here at our gym with our upper levels. We've Zoomed with mental performance coaches. We've done books. We've done lessons. I lead a lot of it because I'm very passionate about it. But one thing that we did that I still do with our kids is we talked about like their telescope goals and their microscope goals. And then we basically create what I consider like a ladder goal because that's where I noticed kids were having trouble. And, their telescope literally could be December for competition, or it could be 10 years from now. Like they think anything past like today is
Right.
long term.
It's long term.
But
Yeah. Yeah, but if you have a goal of 6 years from now to be an elite and you're not finishing your lunges properly, we are at level
Right.
1 out of
Right.
1,000 that we're not going to get there. So,
Yeah. But we were noticing kids were really struggling with, okay, even if my long term is 3 months away, what's my next step today? And so we started really like breaking that down a little differently. So, okay, you have a Yurchenko pike. You need a Yurchenko full or better. That's what, and there's other vault options now. I'm just using that. And okay, so the next vault then is a layout, right? And so what do we need to do to get to the layout, and what can you do today? And so we called these little baby steps. So we had like ladder check-ins, like we're more like monthly check-ins. And then we had like the daily baby steps, like, okay, you need to fix your power. Well, did we fix the run? Because that's something you can do today as a level 8.
right.
You can't do your Shanka 1.5 today, but you can work
Yeah.
on your run, which does include your lunges and your power skips or your hops. And so it's like helping kids break down their goals a little bit more realistic, because I feel like we have a lot of kids that have big goals and big dreams, but putting that into productive actions right now is what I'm noticing they're struggling with.
We find that at the office as well, from a wellness performance, perspective. As you know, I don't just treat injuries. We also do programming for gyms and strength conditioning assessments, etc. You can't do a switch ring that's really good if you don't do your splits. If you can't do regular splits and you can't do over splits, and then you can't do an arch in splits and can't bend your knee. So me teaching you a switch ring that is to the quality that it needs to be on beam or floor, when 2 years ago you didn't have your really good 180 plus switch, I mean, there's all these steps, and the kids go, oh, but I really want to do that. And I'm like, well, you
Mm-hmm.
really had to kind of want to do that 2 to 3 years ago. You want to start doing Tkachevs, you better have a really good back extension roll and a really good free hip and
Yeah.
a really good, there's just,
Yeah.
or a good arch in your back. I mean, there's so many different lead ups. So whatever you want to learn, whether it's from a coaching perspective or a physicality perspective, you have to do the steps to get there. I think that that's a good life skill to teach them too. There's a work ethic. If you don't want to do X+1, then you might be mediocre, and that's okay. Or you might not get to your goals. But if you want to do something, you have to learn the ladders,
Yeah.
even just with an
It's,
ACL rehab, Amanda, or Achilles. Like, I mean, well, everyone always talks about, you can't just start running. You have to jump first, and then you
yeah.
have to be confident, and then you have to jump on soft surface. And like we talked about earlier with the physicians that we work with, that you have to have progress. And so these protocols that come out, same as a goal for college, is don't tell me at 12 weeks you're going to be running. You only get to run if you have established this, and this, and your hip control and your alignment. So I'm happy to give you a list, but the way that you do it is amazing, in that you're asking them to think about what that list looks like. So instead of me telling you that you need these things and you following them just like with your head down, you're actually thinking to yourself, I think it'd be fun to learn, a full out
Yeah.
on bars, but I've never twisted before in the middle of a double. Well, we should probably start that. So
Yeah. Well,
I
in
think
in
that's
one
great.
way, you just made me think. One way I even do that, obviously, we do this like lesson here at the gym, so they're sitting there. But yes, I have 10 things that could get you to getting the Yurchenko layout or the Tkachev, but I want them to invest in the process. I want them to think about the process, and then I tell them all the time, part of the process is, if you don't have 10 steps to write in there, that you ask
Yes.
somebody who
Right.
can help you, because
Right.
I probably have 100 things I could tell you to try to, give
Right.
you a baby step chance. But the point is to not just do my checklist. The point is helping them learn how to, create a process to help them move forward, because
Of course.
ultimately it's that fundamental. It doesn't matter what you're moving forward towards. It's
Yes.
create it and actually do it.
Yep. And that's the hard work, where you said nothing. You can hope and you can pray and you can wish and you can watch. You can attend every single practice, but attending versus working hard, just like in rehab, just like in getting mentally strong, physically strong, You have to put the work in, and that can be done with kindness and empowerment, which I hope our generation is instilling on so many people. Amanda, we are coming to the end of our amazing chat. My final question for you, which would be something maybe that's fun that you can remember. What was the best food that you ate at the Olympics in the
Oh,
do you remember?
we had like personal chefs. We stayed at
Yeah,
a fraternity house
I know.
on Emory University. And I mean, the best part about the food was I ate huge plates. It was
Yeah,
just amazing. And it was all
of food
fresh.
made for you guys.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it awesome?
So it
I
was
love
not
it.
a
Well,
typical cafeteria.
it was not a typical cafe, but that's what you guys needed, and what a cool experience. So I am excited, obviously, to catch up on everything 30-year at Nationals. Can't wait to see you. Thank you. What I love so much about this conversation is that you never stopped loving the sport. And I think until the day you die, even if you are selling the gym or doing whatever 30 years from now, you will always be such a champion. You turn that into a gym where kids can love it too, and you're instilling that in our next generation. So, where exactly are all of your locations with your gyms, and what do you want to tell all the people that are watching this about how to find you, especially if they live close and have their daughters touched by the gold medal magic?
Oh, thank you. Well, we're in the Phoenix area. We have two different gyms. One, our original is in Tempe, and then we have one in Chandler also. And we run our preschool and recreational programs at both. And then most of our competitive levels are at our Chandler location. But we have, our website, just goldmedalgym.com. Find us,
And they have air
on Google
conditioning at
Maps.
both locations for the 120
We
degrees
do.
it's going to be.
We do. Thank goodness.
Oh, well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. That's our show. This sport sure does ask a lot of us, and it gives back more than people will ever realize, to the point where the show is helping athletes stay healthy enough and happy enough for the whole run. I would say one of my best memories and things that I take from it is the friendships that I've built out of the sport, because all of us know how hard it is to be in this, whether it's athletic participation, coaching, choreography, or even leading our U.S. national team. So that is near and dear to my heart. New episodes of the Med Gym podcast are coming out every other week. Every episode, the show notes, and our practitioner directory are on my website, medgym.net. Follow the show wherever you are listening. And if this was useful, send it to a coach or a parent who might need it. Remember, we are always available for consults, treatment, and programming at your gyms, either one-on-one or for your gym as a whole. I'm Gina Angeletti. Take care of the athlete, not just the routine. Prevent, treat, and perform. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.